Right, so we are Jam Productions, and we have taken like a little exploration into the different like sides and essences of the performance which you'll need in order to produce a successful and profitable production of Oh What a Lovely War. Of course, first thing to note about this is Oh What a Lovely War. I'm guessing you guys are planning on doing it in a sort of Brechtian style. This makes it a lot more unique and gives it almost a selling point to the extent that it's going to like appeal very much to students almost, because it's got a very educational style from it. So first, straight off the bat, the style which you're putting it in is going to act as a good unique selling point for it instantly. And anyway,
Right, I'll start off with hair and makeup. My first artist is Gemma Howard. She works over the country, mainly in London, but she does travel. Therefore, she does charge expenses, but she said when I was emailing her that it wouldn't be too expensive for the expenses. So she does mostly theatre work, but she's been trained in weddings as well, so that could be good for the aspect of the showgirls because she can make them look all pretty. She charges £150 per night. That includes the expenses of the makeup and the sponges that she'd need to apply the makeup with, but that doesn't include the travel expenses and the overnight stay that she'd need. My next artist is Inma Zubin. She's been working in Bristol for 10 years. She's fully qualified and got her equivalent of a degree from City of Bristol College. She charges £40 an hour. So I was on the phone to her and I asked, would you run a workshop with some of my actors? And she said yes, so it's the same charge, but that doesn't include expenses such as makeup and materials that she'd need. So she'd run a workshop with 10 actors, and it'd be £40 plus expenses. And then my last artist, Jordan Smith, has been working in Bristol for 5 years, has the same qualifications as Inma, but she only charges £25 an hour plus expenses. So she's good value, but that's because she hasn't got as much experience and publicity as Inma does, because she's not been working as long and she's younger. But I think we would go with Jordan because she seemed very nice when I was talking to her on the phone. She was very polite, and she said that she'd help out on the evenings as well if we needed her, but it's the same charge, so she doesn't have a separate charge for doing like a show. She just charges for £25 an hour as and when you need her. So she could run a workshop for 2 hours and that cost £50 plus expenses, and then you could have her back on the evenings just to help out, and then you just charge her for what she charges you for what you use her. Next up I have our band. South Gloucestershire Youth Orchestra is my first one. They're free. This includes wind instruments, brass instruments and strings, that's violins and cellos and all that jazz. They're youth-based. They work in and around South Gloucestershire. My sister is one of the members, and therefore we have good connections with the orchestra leader. And although I don't feel as though the strings would be very fitting to the time period or era that the show is based in, so we move on to the wind band, which are also free. My sister is also a member of this band, and it's all wind and brass instruments. This we feel is fitting to the time, but maybe we'd go with the next band, which is the jazz band, because that's when jazz came about, is when the era that the show is based, and we feel as though they'd just be very fitting to the time. Move on to the rehearsal space. Our first one is the Kingswood Foundation Studio 1. It's local based, so if we went with actors from Bristol, there'd be no travel expenses because it's all local to Bristol. The plus points to this space is it's £20.90 per hour. It has a sprung floor, so if there were dances involved, it's more of a dance studio, so you wouldn't damage yourself or any joints doing any dances or stage combat, because you can't damage yourself. Our next one is Longwell Green Community Centre. The plus points for that one include a stage. It's only £20 an hour, and the downside is it holds 100, and if you only have, we were thinking of having a cast of around 18. That's obviously then probably too big a space. As for our next space is the Kingswood Foundation Studio 5. That also holds 100 people, so we also feel as though this would be too big and probably wouldn't use the space in the right way. And it's the same price as Studio 1, so there wouldn't really be a difference, there isn't a difference in the price. So we'll go with Studio 1 because it holds 50 people, and therefore we feel as though we could use the space more effectively. Last of all, I'm going to talk to you about our technicians. Chris Barham has been working in and around London, but does travel down to other places in England. He charges £450 for 3 shows and a day rehearsal plus tech rehearsal. So if we did that all in one day, it cost £450. He works as a freelance and has worked in the Theatre Royal Bath, so he's familiar with the area and what's going on there. Chris Campbell was probably our most cost-effective person because he charges £220, and with that £220 he helps you with your lighting design and your sound tech, and you get a day rehearsal and a tech rehearsal for that, and then he charges £60 per show. So if we did 3 shows, it'd cost us £400 in total for that. He also does festivals and concerts, but concentrates mainly on theatre because that's where he's got his most amount of training in. And last of all, the Arnold Feeney, which was one of our venue choices, comes with tech support, so they'd be able to provide lighting design and sound tech for us, but that then moves the price of the Arnold Feeney upwards, so it costs more than the rest of our venue.
So I worked on set, and we looked at building our own set. So we looked at chicken wire, and we sort of looked at B&Q because it had the right measurements. Like we compared it to Wix, but B&Q had the right measurements we needed to build up our own. And then we looked at sandbags, and they had them going for cheap, which is £4.50. However, we would need to buy our own sand, which again we compared to Wix, which was £45, and at B&Q they sold it for £35. So we'd need to build up our own sandbags. Then if I just move on to that one, and then we looked at sort of staging. This is how we thought our staging would be, with a thrust coming out, and then we'd sort of be able to put trenches in between here and have the audience around. This would get the audience more involved and stuff, and then we'd also have these wings for people to be able to get changed, be prepared to come on, and then the main stage would be up here, but then the actors would also be able to come sort of into the thrust, and it'd feel more involvement for the audience as well as being able to go down and sort of interact with them. And I looked at actors, and because we're sort of Bristol based, I looked at Bristol based agencies. So we looked at Phoenix, and I called sort of each one of these individually, and we looked at Phoenix first, and they were able to give me a quote of 200. They were expecting £200 per act, per actor per day. So the actors are paid daily. But then we also called up Guys and Dolls, and they said they'd be expecting the actors to be paid £100 per day. workshop called ITV Workshop, so I have good connections with them. And when I spoke to them, they said we'd be able to get the actors for free. And they have like actors going like through all sorts of ages, so it depends what we needed. But yeah, we'd be able to get them for free, and like they're sort of experienced and talented because to get into it, you sort of need to like audition and show off a talent and like prove that you've been in stuff before. Otherwise, like it's not like they just let other people in, so that they are experienced actors. So like I would suggest going for ITV Workshop just because it saves money. They're Bristol based, so you don't have to pay really for transport. They'll be able to get themselves down, and like they're like although they're sort of amateur actors, they are experienced and do have talent. They are talented. I also looked at costume. Let's have a little look. Alright, so for the first one, we looked at history making, and we found out that they sort of it was £10 plus VAT, like for some outfits. Like we looked at like the sort of military side of it because we thought that people would be able to get the civilian sort of costume and like businessman costume themselves, like suits and like just normal trousers and sort of grey clothes and stuff. We felt like they'd be able to provide themselves. So we looked at the military side, and yeah. So the first link is £10 plus VAT, and then the second link, the second link is quite accurate, but it was £55 per hire per day, and then the third link, which was like it was accurate, but it wasn't to hire. So this one, which was 265 outfit, but it was only to buy, so it wasn't to hire. However, we found this one, which we thought like it was £35 per outfit, which was actually quite good because compared to this one, like you'd be able to get sort of this one's quite authentic, so you'd be able to get sort of outfits from history making which are authentic, but you'd only need sort of authentic ones for the main characters, we thought. So then we thought about this £35 one down here for sort of like the chorus and stuff. Also, we looked at showgirl outfits, like the sort of the dresses to that sort of era, and that was 24 to £30, and that's depending on sizes. So depending on what size we need, like the price would go up, and then you would also be able to get military costumes from there. But we thought if we got them from this one and this one, it'd be better just because it would work out cheaper. Yeah, next slide. And then we looked at props. So we were told we needed to look at poppies, and we thought we'd go to the British Legion, and just like the money, we thought if we asked for, like if we ordered a load of poppies and then had donation buckets at the end, and then people would be able to give donations, and then we'd be able to give them the money back for the poppies with the donations like we get from the sort of audience members when they're coming in and out. We also looked at the second website, History Making again, and they would be like they had props going from 15 to 185 because it was like a wide range. So like the sort of smaller stuff was sort of cheaper. However, like the military and like weaponry side of stuff was more expensive. And then we looked at this Bati one, which focused on the sort of weaponry side of it. So it was a lot more expensive, 147 to 235, like depending on what like sort of gear we needed, whether we needed a rifle with a bayonet and that sort of stuff. So we thought we'd go for history making and then get the poppies from British Legion. And then we looked at the playwright as well. I got this email, and let's have a little look. So on the email, it explains that like to do the show, like we were able to get a license, but we'd have to give a £360 deposit, and after like we wouldn't be charged anymore until after the show, depending on, and like that the price of that would be depending on how much we actually earn from, like how much we made from the show. But they said it wouldn't be more than 360. So yeah, that's the performance rights.
Anyway, taking a look at 3 venues we did primarily. The first one we looked at was the Arnolfini. Of course, there are loads of different stages involved in the Arnolfini, and we thought the best place was something called the Auditorium, which seats 200 people. Some of the benefits, of course, of the Arnolfini are it's sort of like a Bristolian staple of theatre, so there's almost a pre-publicised like popularity about it, which will like provide our play with like a lot of confidence in it, makes it stronger. And whereas the cost for the Arnolfini is a lot higher, being £1,000, it provides an 8-hour day, which would mean we could also double act and have some rehearsal space in the actual venue we're performing in as well, which, will help the actors out because it'll have them in a familiar environment. They'll know how to perform specifically rather than just being thrown onto the stage and rehearsing in a different area. And of course, as Abby stated earlier, it already provides tech support, so it's more expensive, but it has the benefits of providing tech support and already having stigma surrounding it, which is incredibly positive, and a sense of giving the actors a familiarity. And then, of course, there's the Bristol Old Vic. Now, the Bristol Old Vic only seats 150 people, and it's £600 for renting it. However, it does come with a license for alcohol sales. However, when it came to the Bristol Old Vic, as well as the Old Vic is an incredibly, alongside the Arnolfini, is a good staple of British Bristolian theatre, I feel it doesn't offer a lot of the benefits which the Arnolfini did. And so, in relation to it, I thought it was an illogical choice to go for. And then there's the Lloyd's Amphitheatre. This one was slightly more unique. It's actually based in Somerset, so it would require a bit of transport to get actors there. However, it had a lot of essences to it which gave it a unique selling point and related to the play itself. For example, it still seats 200 people, so it's just as much the Arnolfini. It's only £450 to rent. However, it's an outside theatre, so the stage itself is covered. However, the seating is actually sort of outside in the nature. Now, part of this could be problematic because, of course, if it rains or such, it will be very unpleasant for the audience. So it would mean if we were to go with this option, we'd have to definitely be thinking specifically about performance dates and making sure they're at a correct time. However, one of the benefits which I definitely think would be provided by this, as James stated earlier when he gave a sort of prediction of what our stage would be like, there's an essence of interaction with the trenches being outside near the audience, and I think it would make a more aesthetic feeling to it if these trenches weren't actually covered by a stage and they were actually out in the open. It would sort of familiarise and give a stronger image for the audience. Anyway, so that's venues. And then taking a look at transport, we've got 3 different companies being Eurotaxis, Redwood Coaches and Bugler. Of course, they give loads of different prices. Eurotaxis, you can get a 32-seater for £300. However, they are more basic. They don't come with air conditioning, for example. However, we do have some connections with the company. I know people who have worked in Eurotaxis and still work there, so there's an essence of connection to it there. Redwood Coaches offers a 40-seated coach for £450. That one's more I wouldn't say luxurious, but slightly more. It comes with the air conditioning, there are nicer seats, better services provided. And then there's Bugler, which is a lot cheaper, has a 55-seated minibus for £250 or a 35-seat for £350. Now, part of you would want to go with the cheaper option here, of course. However, I personally feel Redwood would be the best one to go to. They're a decent price, but we have to not also forget that if we are taking actors up to another venue, they're going to be in very bad spirits and bad morale if we take them in a cheap coach, which makes their journey uncomfortable. And you want to get the best sort of performance from an actor, you want them to have good morale and be happier, which is why I think Redwood Coaches is the good option to go for. In relation to publicity, we took a look at some different things, different poster options which we can use. Print options which we went for was Vistaprint, Instant Print and Zip Poster Print. Of course, you can see the prices here range quite strongly. You can get 100 A4 copies which we can spend on a lot of places. And I also took a look at some graphic designers and some photographers. For example, a group called Jimmy Image, which is a photographer I've worked with before. Usually primarilises with headshots, however, he's willing to do graphic design and poster design for £100. And then there is a graphic design group called Out of Hand, which would provide the graphic design poster for £120. I took a look at some van hire companies, being Enterprise Rent-A-Car and North Cape Van Hire. They provide £40.94 for a medium and £57.32 for an extra large, being Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And Northgate would offer £41.95 for a medium and £55.13 for a large. Of course, this relates to whether we're going to have much to travel. For example, seeing as we have Bristol-based actors, and if we were to go with a Bristol-based venue, we wouldn't need as much like transport in relation to the coach and the van itself. And finally, looking at radio advertising, we looked at three places being Hart, Jack and Ujima. Hart, of course, has more of a target audience because you're able to put like something out. It's more of a mainstream radio station, so more people listen to it. Then there's Jack FM. It's slightly less of an audience, however, it is cheaper and still provides that essence of a lot of people listen to it, so it can get to a lot of audience members. And then there's Ujima. This, of course, is a very cheap radio station. However, the chances of actually catching our target audience are quite slim, so it would probably be quite a silly choice to go for. And in relation to actually making a radio advertisement, we can sort of use the services of the actors which we've provided for the show, who will be able to get together and create